Innovate. Accelerate. Move technology forward. The startup revolution is now.
Hey, Michael.
Hey Oliver, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Philippine Startup Week 2022. And this is a community event that Michael and I are hosting to talk about building your Web3 startup. So, Michael, tell us about BitPinas. Not that you need that introduction.
Yeah, thank you so much, Oliver, and thank you so much to our readers and to our listeners right now. My name is Michael. I'm the editor in chief of BitPinas, and we are a news publication since 2017, and we've been covering the story of cryptocurrencies here in the Philippines. And the story, as you know, have expanded into more things like play to earn, NFTs, and now also Web3. Ultimately at BitPinas, we wanted to make sure that we cover like every facet of the industry. So from the grassroots to our regulators. So I'm excited for this particular panel at Philippine Startup Week 2022.
That's awesome. And at Coinbase, our mission is to increase economic freedom in the world. So the Philippines is definitely one of those places where we're super excited about. And today we want to bring you guys like a pretty awesome panel to talk about how to build your Web3 startup. And I want to call them out one by one already and bring them into the stream. Let's start with Alvin Wong from Maya. And Alvin would love for you to give a quick intro about yourself.
Hi everyone. So I'm Elvin Wong from representing Maya. So I lead all the business unit in regards to investments, and we just launched our crypto exchange in April 2022. So very good to be here, and also with very familiar folks with the next speakers as well. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Next up, we want to bring on Elijah from coins.ph.
Hey everyone. Hey, Elijah here. Hey, yeah. So for me, I've been with Coins since like February. Prior to that, I was in Goldman Sachs and also Binance. Right now, I'm just handling everything crypto exchange related right now at Coins. And yeah, we're trying to bring like a easy Web3 access to everyone.
Nice, thank you, Elijah. And now we bring up Hassan from Coinbase.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here. My name is Hassan Ahmed. I'm the Regional Director for Southeast Asia for Coinbase. Prior to Coinbase, I was the CEO for Coins PH for some time as well. So very excited to be here with friends new and old.
Gotcha. And now we have Justin from Coinbase.
Good morning, everyone. Hi, I'm Justin Choi. I lead Corp Dev and Ventures for Coinbase and APAC based out of Singapore. In this role, I'm thinking about how Coinbase can build this business inorganically around Asia through investment and partnerships, as well as leading Coinbase Ventures efforts around the APAC region.
All right, so I guess we want to start now with our first question. So I'm starting with the basics now. So anyone in the panel, or maybe let's start with Albin, who's on my side. So what is Web3 and why is it important to the Philippines?
Yeah, thanks. I think Web3 to me in the Philippines represents a combination of what we do as a crypto exchange. I think you talk about GameFi. I think the world, is very familiar with the role of GameFi. And I was just recently in Token 2049, and every company who is talking about blockchain gaming has a slide about Axie Infinity that shows how deeply ingrained is spread all over the world. And it's really grown very rapidly throughout the COVID period. So for me, I think when you talk about Web3 specifically on Philippines, it's GameFi number one. Obviously, the world at large, and last year to this year, we talk about NFTs. the state of where we are on the crypto landscape, so-called the crypto winter we are experiencing right now. So to me, I think those are the topics that resonate to me.
Cool. I want to turn it over to Hassan. You once said that the Philippines is the most interesting market for crypto. And I think your quote was like, I remember this because this was like it's super intriguing to me too as a Filipino, is that there is no market that has adopted crypto digital assets or Web3 in a way that the Filipino community has. So can you unpack that for this audience? Like, what do you mean by that? Why was Web3 exciting, and what does it mean for the Philippines?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Ollie. So definitely stand by what I said, and I think that that commitment has increased even more. So I think the Philippines is a very special market and community within the broader global crypto ecosystem. And there's a few reasons for that. I think at a very base layer within the country, I really applaud the government and the kind of policymakers for being early to thinking about crypto in a very progressive way. Because if you rewind back to like 2017, 2018, this is when really, we think crypto is maybe Wild West now. Like at that time, there was really just like nothing, in terms of like formalized definitions. And the BSP, in trying to balance financial inclusion as well as sort of consumer protection and innovation, they said, look, this is very interesting. This is something that can really help the Philippines, especially with the Philippines as sort of importance as a kind of remittance sort of inbound center. And they decided to put a framework around crypto legislation very, very early on. Maybe it was, it was sort of still kind of emergent, but they said, look, it's better for companies to be able to service through a framework that they can operate and build out of. And that really provided kind of the early days for, the coins, PHs of the world to be able to build these kind of compliant fiat on-ramps, and got consumers to used to the idea that like crypto is this sort of, legalized and formalized asset that can be sort of here to stay, and it's something that the government has also provided a protection for. And so since then, we've seen actually 3 use cases at scale in the Philippines that exist today, and there's no other country in the world where there's 3 use cases at scale. So what do we have? We have traditional trading, we have blockchain-based remittances, and now we have Web3 gaming. And so that makes this Philippines this very exciting ground for like just very fertile innovation, where consumers and builders are coming together in a very unique way. So we'll talk about that more, but that's why I'm so excited about the Philippines.
Thank you so much, Hassan. For us, for example, at BitPinas, so I remember very clearly, like in 2017, when Coins.ph got its license from the BSP, and then we had this particular bear market from 2018 to I guess 2020. And at BitPinas, it's like we don't have any news to write. Like every 1 week or 2 weeks, there's like no news from the Philippines. But 2021, like every week or now every day, there's news coming out from the Philippines, and even international companies that are wanting to establish a foothold here in our country. So I want to ask like Elijah and Justin. So obviously Hassan has mentioned, Web3 gaming, play to earn. These are the trends that have happened like in the last 2 years. So for Justin and Elijah, what are the trends that you are seeing right now in terms of what is being built here in our space?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that one first. And one of the areas that we as Coinbase Ventures have focused on globally are Web3 developer tools, right? And part of the reason for that is, if you look at, even though everyone's heard of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and we've seen a whole bunch of new use cases taking advantage of the blockchain, such as DeFi, NFTs, GameFi, DAOs, etc. Today, Web3 developers actually only represent less than 1% of the 31 million software developers globally, right? And we think why that's the case. We think it's because the tools and infrastructure available to these developers are much less robust than what exists for Web 2, right? So it's actually very difficult for developers today, even very experienced Web 2 developers, to actually transition over to Web 3. So that that's all obviously changing, and we're investing a lot behind that. And in fact, the number of monthly active Web3 developers continues to grow as the tools improve. And so when we think about, for example, the front end of Web 2 and Web 3 being similar, right? When you're accessing various dApps, et cetera, the core experience is pretty similar. On the back end, however, there are a lot of key differences. For example, while Web 2 apps are built on centralized databases, Web 3 apps are built on decentralized databases. So this requires a whole new set of kind of backends and primitives like wallets. And so again, the tools that are currently available to Web 2 builders are very sophisticated and complex because they've been built over the course of decades. And in Web 3, those are still very nascent. And so so that today, as developers kind of migrate over to Web 3, they're being asked to, in many cases, to reinvent the wheel, do a lot of what was previously automated in Web 2 very kind of manually. And as such, when we think about where we're spending a lot of our investment dollars and time, it's really focused on again, investing behind the tools that are enabling kind of developers coming into the space and building the next generation of Web3 apps.
Yeah, I think I kind of echo what everyone has said here, right? Like for me, I kind of like reserve myself from like using the term like bear market or like crypto winter, right? Like kind of to like what Mike has said earlier, like in 2017 it was like just dead silence, right? In fact, like when I first started working in crypto, right, there was when like BTC was like $4,000 like everyone who I knew was like are you sure about this, like COVID is about to happen. But anyway, it's like I think generally we still see like a very optimistic tone, almost like a cautiously optimistic tone from like ventures who are supporting the builders, right? Like the builder themselves is like, I don't really think it's like a winter per se, because like everyone's still building, like be it from like the very top of funnel stuff, or in fact like we're seeing very strong infrastructure level type of projects that are happening. Was even talking to someone who was trying to see whether they can like rebuild very base layers of the internet from like the TCP/IP layer. So I think it's gonna like blow our minds, right, in terms of like what people are exploring to build. But yeah, I think everyone's very engaged right now as well. Like especially just wanna share like what I feel so bullish about like Philippines as well, right? Like like across Asia or even across the world, right? Like major crypto events, they happen almost about 2 months or so, right? Every 2 months there's like an event that everyone goes to, like 2049 was one of them. But in the Philippines, it's like it's just a very exciting community, right? People gather almost like every 2 to 3 weeks. Even like over the weekend there was like a typhoon coming out, like people just show up. It's like the energy over there is just great, right? Like and I think it's very important for like the builders to keep this kind of cohesiveness, because at the end of the day, like for Web3 to work together, right? I kind of think like it's gonna be an integration at every level, right? Like be you working on like the base layer, you reaching out to users and like creating a tokenomics for it, and then like exchanges who can provide a fiat on and off ramp will also like play a part, right? That's when you can have like the full ecosystem, when you can have like a full product to the people. Yeah.
Very cool. I want to double click with Alvin because you've been in the Philippines for quite some time already. And everyone knows about Maya. Started out as a payments app, right? Evolved into a bank, has a merchant acceptance business too. Like, where does Web3 fit in that mission?
Well, I think for Maya, I think we started off looking at areas of growth and pillars of growth. Bear in mind, I think when we came up with the strategy, I think we were looking at what else can we grow within the company as a e-wallet company. We were applying for a digital bank license, and naturally when we talk about identifying some of the gaps, we zoom in on the area on investments, whereby we saw that there was great work done by a lot of Coins was very early. I think PDEX was there as well, and we saw that there was a commonality between the area of crypto investments, and obviously during the COVID period where we grew as a digital company, and people couldn't go out. People had to revert to digital means. People who have to get out of the comfort zone, and you either do digital or or that becomes a major problem. So I think is with that macro background, we grew tremendously. We're now at 50 million users in Philippines, all of an addressable population of 110 million in Philippines. And I think the natural progression was for us to get into crypto investments where there's higher engagement. If you look at the relationship that a user have with a payments app, typically you bring your phone, you log in, and then you scan to pay. So that's how you interact when you pay offline at a QR standee or a merchant that we terminalize. But that's over very fast, right? There's no real engagement. I think one of the standouts that we felt validated our strategy was the fact that now when people open the Maya app, you actually take a look at the pricing, you look at the news, you poke around and see like, oh, what's happening? How is it? What is this tickers that's happening in real time? I think there's a whole lot of engagement that we see. And we feel that this is sort of the start of where financial institutions or payment companies start to look at it and embrace it and say like, well, what if we added investments to the mix? What can we offer to the end consumers? But of course, the initial strategy was always tying back to we are a wallet. We want to grow engagement. We want to grow MAUs. We want to have more transactions that go through us. But I think most importantly, we want to offer an end-to-end complete digital journey. And that is also addressing the pain points of financial inclusion, where as wallets, we are strong because number one, in the Philippines, there are maybe less than 30% who are banked. So that's the reason why we are strong. We became a digital bank to address the gap, which is basically we would like to enable users with larger deposits, larger transaction size, which you can't traditionally do on an e-wallet because there are limits like 100K pesos, 500K pesos. But with a digital bank user, we are not constrained by that. So that was the thought process, engaging it from the bottom up so that everybody is included, and then targeting the mid-affluent, the affluent. That's why we as Maya, as a tech line, we say we're everything all in one as well as a bank. And I think what is unique about us and the way that we work on it is also about regulation. We are probably one of the first entities in Southeast Asia where we have a combination of e-money license, a digital bank license, as well as a VASP license. I think if you look at Southeast Asia specifically, probably only DBS stands out that have the triumvirate of all of them. But DBS doesn't do mass retail, which we do. So I think that's kind of showing a direction to all the e-wallet companies who have applied to digital banks like, well, what do we do to grow? So I think we should have gone ahead and pushed through, but still very early days, I think, in growing the company towards the Web3. But we want to serve as the bridge that funnels between the traditional Web2, where we have 50 million users. How can we enable them and expose them to more opportunities towards the Web3 world? And so that's the ramp off, which we believe that will be a proliferation of such services that we see in Philippines today.
Gotcha. Thank you, Alvin. And yeah, Maya had its crypto license just December, I believe, and now they have this also digital banking license. And I want to double down on this one, and I want to ask Coinbase, either Justin or Hassan, and then Elijah. So you guys had your startup. Coinbase has been around for quite some time, Coins.ph2, and then we are now seeing all these new companies going and then establishing, for example, foothold here in the Philippines and also everywhere else. So what do you think about this particular trend? Do you see this like as a challenge, or you see this as a welcome thing, especially for Web3 and crypto?
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. So, Michael, thanks for the question. I think at the end of the day, what we're all sort of unified in is to make sure that consumers have choice and they have access and they are able to solve, the problems or whatever the jobs to be done that they're wanting to do. I think what's very exciting about the Philippines right now is, again, like focusing on like the Web3 startup space, is that I think for a long time, Philippines was really perceived as sort of a big kind of consumer market and a progressive kind of crypto consumer market. I think what's happened in the last year and a half is that is now sort of changing to become a more balanced builder and consumer market. And really, I'd say that the kind of milestone sort of event of what's happened is that you have sort of within the region of SEA, you have kind of Axie as one tentpole out of Vietnam, and you have YGG as one tentpole out of the Philippines. And there have been other, very kind of promising Web3 native startups in the Philippines before as well. But it just sort of takes that one kind of big proof point to show that it can be done, just like running the 4 minute mile. And then a lot of folks get inspired by that energy and that hey, I can sort of do this as well. If I see someone like me who's accomplished something meaningful in terms of, in this case, sort of the Web3 builder space. So the amount of energy that we're seeing, frankly, on the builder side of kind of crypto projects that are coming up to the Philippines is frankly, it's phenomenal. And it's very, very encouraging to see, as what Justin was alluding to in terms of even helping Web2 developers onboard onto Web3. We're seeing kind of, green shoots of that, picking up in Philippines with a lot of momentum. And like I said, I think what at the end of the day, it's about growing the pie and it's about building out the ecosystem. I think fiat on ramps are just providing that, that fiat on ramp kind of service is one important but very specific part of it. What happens after that, right? Especially let's take the self custodial wallet experience. I like Philippines is really important and ahead in that sense of because of play to earn and now play and earn. Many Filipino users' journey is actually starting crypto first, right? They earn their first crypto. They don't necessarily buy their first crypto. So just being able to kind of build for that kind of a problem statement, which isn't really happening much else in the world right now, provides this very kind of unique angle of attack where you can start small, build for the local market. But I'm very confident that Philippines is sort of showing the way to the rest of the world that over time, especially as Web3 gaming gets bigger, or being able to kind of earn crypto gets bigger, this kind of a problem space is going to be global. And I'm very confident that like there's going to be many billion-dollar plus companies and startup projects that are going to come out of the Philippines for that reason. I'll pause there.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll also like share some of my views, right? Like to me, like the whole run out of like play to earn, right? Sort of has like put the Philippines on like like figuratively speaking on the map, right? For like the crypto world, like I think late last year it was almost synonymous, right? When people think about play to earn, like they think about Philippines, right? But like for me, I think that can be a lot more. To be honest, it's like Philippines is so well positioned to take the global stage for Web3, right? Like you have great developers, you have like a really great community, like people are native to crypto already. And in fact, like I feel like the whole play to earn has onboarded like a whole new generation of of new Web3 users, right? Like these people have probably I guess some of them have learned how to use like a wallet before they have used the exchange, which like to at a point in time was really mind blowing as well. So yeah, I guess for coins, not only like directly with users, providing them like a access to crypto and Web3 specifically. Yeah, we also spend a lot of our time talking to like business partners, taking sort of like a advisory role as well, right? Whenever we try to like like work with them on ideas about like how they can transform their existing business or their existing model to be more to be more Web3 native, right? Like, and how they can eventually like share the identity together with the users, right? Yeah.
So thank you so much. And I just want to have a quick comment, and then I'll give to you, Oliver. No, based on our conversations, and that is also what I have observed. There's this thing in Web3 called the WAGMI, right? The we all gonna make it culture, and that's what I really see here in, for example, in this particular event that we have right now, and even in offline events. Like, you don't normally see, competitors working together to create events or to do some projects together, and that is something that is certainly unique here in our industry. So yeah, Oliver.
Yeah, no, I definitely see that in the Philippine community. There are parts of crypto that can definitely feel to be more tribalistic, but in the Philippines, at least I see there's a very egalitarian spirit to it, for everyone helping out everyone, because the goal is growing the pie, right? And all tides and the rising tides lift all boats, right? Uh, Guys, let's shift our discussion a bit more to like focus on the future, right? Like on what's next, and how we can be helpful to founders who are watching this and want to build their own Web3 startup. And what I've noticed is a lot of like founders take inspiration from real use cases that solve specific problems that Web3 is uniquely suited for. So I want to ask each one of you here, like, what's the favorite Web3 use case or startup that you've seen quite recently, and why do you like it, right? Like, I can give a quick start, right? Like, for me, I'd say uh, Farcaster has been like a pretty interesting app. It's a decentralized social network started by a former Coinbase person too. And I think the reason I'm excited about it is because they think about social networks as something that's decentralized, right? Like, I can bring my identity and my social graph and not be stuck in one app. And I can make that transferable across different apps, right? Like, which is like a total game changer from the big centralized social networks of the past. So yeah, would love to learn how what you guys are like loving so far. So maybe we can start with Justin on that front, since you see a lot of startups.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Oliver, again, I'm a big fan of Farcaster as well, and I guess staying on that theme, really excited about these Web3 applications that are kind of working to disrupt the captive models of Web2, right, and give users more control over their audiences and communities. So, Farcaster, as you mentioned, one example of that. Another one is another Coinbase Ventures portfolio company is a company called Highlight.xyz, and it lets musicians create their own Web3 enabled fan clubs and communities without actually, having them have any sort of coding experience, right? And allows those musicians to create experiences, using token gating, access to NFT airdrops, merchandise, and more. Again, without having to have the experience of writing the code themselves, which I think is pretty exciting.
All right, so maybe Alvin.
I think in general, what I've been impressed with, which is quite recent, was I'm not sure whether you guys are users of Reddit, but I think it's a classic tale of the onus about marketing and bundling terms like NFTs sitting at the background and trying to push use cases which are built on top of blockchain technology, uh, not so much in your face, but really happening, underneath. And I think for those who are not aware, I think Reddit rolled out their Reddit Vault, where you're able to customize your avatar. Technically, underneath is actually an NFT marketplace powered by Polygon, which has collections which are designed by Reddit users. I think they've done it really succinctly, and it seems they really scale up to like 2.8 million users in the last 3 months. A lot of them who were not aware that these were NFTs at all. I mean, this is an example, a classic case of Web2 companies scratching their head and say, like, what can we do in the Web3 world? And I think we've seen a lot of cases coming through in so many facets of the Web2. The other thing that was interesting, of course, I'm not sure you guys have seen the news just recently on Apple, on the App Store, where they're saying that they're going to charge like 30% in-app purchases. So I think that has a fundamental possibility to shift. On one side, the school of thought is that well, they're really trying to make a lot of money from developers, so much so that it's prohibitive. The other school of thought is that, well, seems like Apple has sharpened their policy to recognize the potential of a revenue stream on NFTs. I guess there are a lot of red tape under the hood in terms of what you can do. Some of this that we were thinking of, like how can we extend the utility value of tokens? I think some of that might be challenged. You probably see a mix of match of strategies and techniques ranging from the app itself to the web, and how some of the developers might try to skirt some of these rules. We haven't seen what's going to happen on the Android side of the fence, but I think sooner or later you see them reacting. And I think it's progressive overall, because it basically means that there's a large proliferation of Web2 companies who are encroaching into the Web3 space, and that includes us as well. That was the reason why we embarked on it in the first place. But I think the only difference is that with the current state of things, a lot of those with not so solid economics have sort of fallen apart. The current people or companies who have stayed true and managed to survive and are still building throughout, I think that's where you see the new frontier, where much more use cases will come left, right, and center. Whether or not it needs to be marketed as NFT, that remains to be seen. I think the smart thing is to try to do it succinctly. But it needs skill, the technique, and the challenge is all about execution. How do you deliver a great user experience without talking about the tech, but focusing on what we like to do as human beings? Enjoy the service and the solution.
I love that Reddit example, Alvin, because it's not just applicable for startups doing it, right? Like Web2 and traditional companies can use this technology to solve their problems too, and abstract away all of the complexity and just like make it seamless and invisible for the user. So yeah, that was an awesome example. Elijah.
Yeah, I guess it's very hard to pick like a Web3 project specifically, right? Because like, I kind of take the view that all of it needs to come together and play a part. Yeah, one of the projects that I've seen, was gonna be is actually high on my like watch list is Lens Protocol actually. Because like I guess before the weekend, before the weekend, like Web3 people are engaging over like Twitter, which is pretty much like a sort of like a a very Web2 platform, right? But I guess like things are changing ever since like over the weekend, right? But then like that being said, I think what has been happening on like the Reddit NFT side of things is very cool, because I'm actually seeing that that happening everywhere, right? Like be it in the traditional digital bank, traditional just e-wallet companies. Like what we've been seeing is that the line has been increasingly blurred. Like earlier in the days, I think it was very clear cut in terms of like who operates like a fiat wallet, right? And then who operates like a crypto wallet in a custodial way, and then who operates like a non-custodial way, right? It was like very clear like lanes in terms of like where people are working towards, right? But one thing that still remains to be seen is kind of like who is going to be the Web3 wallet to rule them all, right? Like a one wallet that you can do everything. Is kind of like it's kind of like still I'm still waiting and see basically, because I think eventually what we can see as well is like Web3 wallet is going to be a very key thing for us to see, right? Like right now, I don't actually think it is like the lack of like a Web3 projects, right? Like as and when you try to like play around and you see it, it sort of works, right? Like a lot of them are still trying to find their product market fit, but like they work, right? Like, but what really is lacking in the world is like people just don't have like an easy way to interact with it. I kind of want to allude to like the example where like no how a lot of people don't see WeChat as an application, right? It is almost like an operating system, and I think in like the end stage of like a Web3, that's what we're gonna see, right? We're gonna see strong Web3 wallet applications coming in as an operating system, right? I mean, like final thing is like was actually trying to dig around and explore about like music NFT. And guess what's the problem, right? Everyone loves the idea. Like everyone loves the idea of ownership. Everyone loves the idea of giving back the artist a fair share, right? But who wants to listen to their music on a wallet? I don't even know how to do that, right? So I yeah, that I'll just leave it at that. I think people like to use Web3, but it's just not easy enough, right? And yeah, and as part of Coins, like what we're trying to figure out is like how do we bring the access to everyone? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elijah. And on your question, Oliver, on my end, I I really like what is happening right now in terms of the e-learning space. Especially right now in with the market conditions that we have right now, I think education is one of the biggest things that people should invest on heavily, especially if they come at like we have onboarded a lot of people, especially during the bull market, right? So but now there are others also that are coming in, and I guess the most important right now is education. And there are a lot of e-learning or learning initiatives in the Web3 space, and even exchanges are doing their own also. So now Web3, and oh no, Hassan also, would you like to answer the question from Oliver?
Sure. Yeah. So I agree with pretty much sort of everything that's been said, and in particular, Elijah, some of the examples you were describing. I think the abstract sort of that I think about it for how kind of the Web3 space has been playing out is the infrastructure application recursive cycle that occurs. People build infra, people are able to build consumer apps on top of it. There's some use cases that break out that necessitates the need for like better infra so you can scale, and so on and so forth. And so I think on the consumer facing side of things, I agree that I think that the Reddit NFT example is really powerful, of just an existing company being able to deliver what they're calling like a digital collectible experience. So it's you look at the comments on Reddit, and it's really funny because people are now discovering NFTs, and it might be the same people that were actually very anti NFT when they had heard about it for from a Bored Apes or CryptoPunks perspective. Suddenly they're like, oh, I can sell this for 10K. Oh, that's amazing. So I think that's pretty cool. I think on the gaming side, paying some attention to what Limit Break in particular is doing. There definitely there's a lot of I'd say high expectations. But I'd say some of the way that they've described how they're approaching, going from free to play to free to own, with sort of the factory model, I think that might sort of spring a new meta, so to speak, for what the gaming direction is going to be. All of that said, I still believe that Axie is still the next Axie. Kind of big believer in that team and those folks. I think they're very well funded. The team's still hungry. They're ready for a fight. They love being the underdogs. So expecting to see more coming out of them as well. I think on the more on the DeFi and sort of infra side, I think one important theme that for the Philippines in particular to pay attention to is stablecoins. So there's no real kind of first principles reason why stablecoins should be just cornered off to USD based stablecoins, right? And it's just been that way for a long time for a whole bunch of reasons. But now we're starting to see sort of the next level of stablecoins start to come out too. Circle, for example, announced EURC some time ago. And even in our region, we're seeing XSGD, for example, out of Singapore, get a lot of traction. So the jobs to be done here really is about like improving liquidity on FX pairs for cross-border, right? Whether it's cross-border commerce, cross-border remittances. And that's why I think Philippines can play a very important role on this particular aspect. I think folks like XLD are doing a pretty good job at that. There's one project out of Singapore called Blue Jay that's trying to do a regional play. But I expect to see just more. And I think this is still like an open opportunity that if you were able to bring together the protocol sort of market makers and probably some kind of traditional rails and players that can help with like the fiat side of things, we can 10x this experience quite well. Easy is a light word, but like it's realistic to expect that this is going to get opened up, and there are going to be a few big companies being built in this space in our region. I think finally on the infrastructure side of things, there's always sort of L1, L2s are always evergreen in terms of where it's going to go. Definitely always feels like there's too many base layer protocols, but then another one comes out and here we go again. I do think the zoom out here is that even with all the builder activity, there's still roughly only about 15,000-ish monthly active developers on Web3. You compare that to the size of the pie on Web2. So I think it's still a fair conclusion to say that it's still early days, even on L1, L2s and AppChains and all that stuff. So if you're a builder and if you're thinking about these themes, I would love to see a base layer protocol come out of the Philippines as well that services the rest of the world.
That's great to hear, Hassan. And I'm sure a lot of folks watching this are going to be thinking, okay, I have an idea for Web3. I want to do something, but I have a job. I need to build a team. I need to raise funding. So let's get into that investing question, right? Like, what's the best way for Filipino founders to raise funds, and then what advice, right? Like, will you give them as you go through this process? Happy for anyone to take that on.
Yeah, maybe I'll take that one. I'll just kind of describe a little bit about what we're seeing, right, globally, and obviously, we're affected by, some macro conditions, right, that have, led to folks, kind of dubbing the current market as being, winter, right, and we kind of agree with that holistically. However, at least from Coinbase's venture standpoint, we're still deploying at a pace that's very much in line with where we were last year. We do focus, I would say, more on the early stage right now, but for example, our in Q2 this year, our deal activity was actually up 70% year over year, right, compared to where we were in 2021. And so, though again, we are focused, I would say, more on the earlier stage, that being pre-seed, seed, Series A. That's more so than kind of the growth stage at this point. I think that should be an encouraging sign to founders and builders who are looking to launch a project in Web3 today, right? The old cliches that winter is a time for building, and not to spout it again, but it really do believe that if you're focused on a big problem, you're focused on creating real value and not just a quick hit. The next few years, there's still funding available for that, right? A lot of capital was raised by funds back in 2020, 2021 that is yet to be deployed. And I would say Coinbase Ventures is not alone in its desire to kind of fund those exciting projects. And further, I would say, unlike Web 2, Web 3 is a bit more global, right? So the VCs aren't really only focusing on their local markets. They are looking for great projects in countries that are not their own and are willing to travel and or meet with founders remotely to find those opportunities. And so even though teams are based out of the Philippines, for example, I don't think it's a matter that they are only limited by the capital providers in the Philippines, but rather can tap into, again, this global pool of capital that remains quite robust at the early stage.
So maybe I think for us, I think not so much on the investment side, but we've definitely gone to a lot of community events. I think some hosted by Michael as well. And it's always interesting to see the angle that how some of these Web3 builders are looking to solve the problems. I look at it more from the perspective of that particular problem. How could Maya play a role to solve it as a partnership? So for me, it's more about identifying pockets where we can leverage our distribution, we can leverage the assets that we have, the channels that we have, whether it's a wallet, a digital bank, or crypto exchange, and how can we turbocharge some of these pain points that they've talked about. So for me, it's more about that. I think there's many of the Web3 founders on the education side. Funnily enough, in Philippines, I think Michael, you mentioned about that. So we've definitely seen them growing very fast. I think in the area of the NFT marketplaces, I think there's a lot of new developments that come along in the Philippines, in some of these players as well. So that's very encouraging. And obviously, I think gaming, you have a series of new challenges towards the play to earn ecosystem, whether it's sort of like a Steppen kind of clone or a metaverse type of company. We've definitely seen more and more of them sprouting out. So I think my message to the founders is work with traditional companies, Web2, Web3 companies like us, to further enhance and increase your verticals. And I feel that I echo what Justin was mentioning about that. Today, when you talk about Web3, it's really the world without borders. Basically, the benefit of being involved in Web3 basically means that it's not technically just a local approach, but it's something that would work across different demographics. And we've definitely seen a lot of companies come out and say, hey, it's not just a Philippine-only solution, but something that has regional aspirations, and maybe eventually that transitions to something global. So I think it's that thinking out of the box and beyond the borders, which I think in traditional Web 2, depending on the type of verticals that you're fronting and are responsible for, may not be readily encroachable. But you definitely see pushing those boundaries in the Web3 space.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool because like yeah, what we typically have seen is that like prior to this when the market was very different from what it is today, right? Like we see founders can go out literally. Well, probably you don't even need to go to like VCs, right? Some of the VCs come to me and say, "Hey, I have a GameFi project." I say, "Okay, your graphic looks okay. Like you have a team, right?" I said, "Okay, like people are gonna like line up for like allocation for it." But yeah, just kind of like a joke for it, right? But I kind of think it's really very positive right now that like everyone's still like investing in the projects. For coins, our role is not investing, but like we talk to a lot of builders, we talk to a lot of projects, and yeah, eventually who's gonna survive like the whole building period that we're experiencing right now is like those who are able to find like the product fit for it, right? Like. I am very very excited about Web3, and to me it's like an unprecedented thing, like obviously, but like um the closest thing that I can see similarity to it is the whole open source initiative like that people were driving for, right? It is by and large, and it is very obviously it's a good thing, right? But like the challenge of it is not just like showing people that it is a good thing, but then like how do you get people involved? How do you get people excited, right? Like Web3, say taking NFT specifically, right? It's a concept of ownership that for the newer generation, like I guess like the older generation, like some people are happy with like gold bars and like property, right? Which is a very different time that we live in right now. Like the newer generation, like nobody really like it gets excited over these things, but like the whole idea of ownership is gonna take a shift, right? But I think the challenge of like the Web3 founders and projects is that how do you get people excited for it, and that's also something that we spend a lot of time, right? We talk to people about like their concepts about like, how do you bring it up to people to create more value. Not really just about bringing X from Web 2 and then just like porting over to Web 3, right? I think that has to come, right? But just think about it, right? Like the whole digitalization of like our world, like yeah, like bringing paper onto like onto computers, onto like cloud servers was one thing, right? But then that is like such a small part of it, right? Like as compared to like what are the things that you can create on like the digital world itself, right? And we're just seeing like a magnified version of it and super excited. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Elijah. And Hassan, would you want to answer the question?
I think Justin covered it really well from our side, along with everyone else. So we can move on.
Yeah, so thank you so much, panel, for this very interesting discussion. Now, we know, I think everyone can attest that the Philippines is the epicenter of play to earn and GameFi, like with Axie and all those things that are happening. So And here in the Philippines, we have this particular we have the structured regulation on this side from the BSP and the SEC and all, and then we are seeing some developments also from the government, from the DACP and from the DOST as well. So my question to the panel now is, what policies and regulatory reforms would you love to see to enable the Philippines to truly be a Web3 leader of the world? So now we can maybe we can start with Hassan.
Sure. This is a really important topic, as different countries and markets are sort of thinking about their position and the roles they want to play in this really important emerging innovation. I'd say that, again, for Philippines in particular, I think that they've done a lot of things right early on, and I think it's starting to kind of show sort of in the results. And in many ways, it's you have to trust that the emergent property of like a breakthrough technology will sort of play out in some ways that you would hope for it to. And sort of the corollary to that is to make sure that you're not stifling that innovation through too much proactive regulation upfront, because again, you might not be able to then enjoy the benefits of it. I think that there's two or three kind of specific themes that I think that the policymakers and stakeholders, including the industry, ought to think about. I think one is just being able to continue the theme of providing access and options to consumers. One of the things in the current administration's 8-point socioeconomic agenda is to make sure that there's reduced barriers to entry and just higher and fairer market competition. So we would hope that that theme would be sort of taken into account. I think the other kind of important thing that's going on here is, again, I think Philippines is transitioning to becoming a user and builder market, and one of the important things is to think about like how these two are interconnected. That having a sort of a base of builders and projects and companies within Philippines will also bring in a lot of FDI back into the country. And so, to be able to kind of, open up that channel, one is just, some policies around like incentives for Web3 projects in particular. It could be in the forms of implementations around, incubators or sort of other forms of like government support, such as like, even stipends. There's some things that the Singapore government does really well in that sense. They have these innovation offices, in this case called the FinTech Ecosystem Office and the FinTech Innovation Office. And they're promoting both kind of companies and startups to set up shop in Singapore for that reason. I think Philippines can tailor something like that, for the unique needs of how the market is set up. And then I think the next sort of side of it is that again, builders will come and set up shop in the Philippines, local and global, because the users are here. And so it's again very important to just recognize that this circle there's a circle here and it's recursive. And to make sure that the ecosystem on both sides is sort of grown as a whole in that wider context. That's really, I'd say, that the make or break and the way that Philippines can promulgate itself even further across the globe.
Thank you so much, Hassan and Alvin. On the question, would we love to see enable the Philippines to be a Web3 leader?
Yeah, I think naturally at this time, areas of the school of thought about the travel rule sort of resonate as a ongoing topic. I think we are one of the few companies and regions, to be honest, I think where a lot of the players are already compliant. Coins is compliant. I think PDAX is compliant. We are getting compliant. But if you look at the other licensees holders in Philippines on the VASP licensing itself, I guess it's still a bit of a gray area in terms of overall compliance. Of course, what we want is liquidity in and out from a cross-border point of view, as well to different counterparties in a very safe, regulated manner to ensure that there's a full form of KYT being performed. The ability to have partnerships with various different VASPs globally. If you talk about cryptocurrencies, previously we talked about the area of remittance. It was sort of anything and everything that can happen. Now I think the pipe is sort of being ring fenced to parties who should and comply to the travel rule itself. So obviously there are differing standards globally. We talk about US, we talk about Europe. I know there's sort of a mandate to comply, but the reality is that there are lots who have different approaches as well. I think Coinbase has a different approach on the trust. For us, when we look at the landscape and we're like, well, which are the networks that we need to connect to? So right now, all these are business costs that sort of impede, in a way, us trying to solve the issue of trying to bring the cost down when it comes to areas like incoming funds, like such as remittances, etc. Right? And I think those are things that would be good to be clarified from a regulatory landscape itself. When we talk about tokens, when we talk about some of these conditions where as exchanges, we are facilitating a lot of such activity in Philippines itself. I know there's a lot of thought process on top from the regulators about how do we regulate this, or should we look and classify it as in the form of a security. But if you look at the way such tokens are, may not necessarily follow the utility of a security. I mean, like, is it fair to expect that a certain token that we list, needs to have a prospectus to the end user? In the crypto world, these things don't exist. And if you dig a little bit deeper into each token, you realize that they are kind of fundamentally different in terms of what they are. Some of them are governance tokens, and some of them don't really fulfill the profile of like a security token. So there's sort of a bridge from the traditional securitized world towards the crypto world. I think that's where there's a lot of work ongoing right now. And fair enough, there's a lot of papers that were being discussed. We're also part of them, and I think we've given sort of a position paper. I know that Coins is also part of that as well. And I think we want to represent the local voice of the Filipino companies when it comes to working with the government, work with us who are regulated in the country to try to come up with standards that apply for all. Because we are providing services and solutions to Filipinos as regulated entities. There's a cost of certification. We ensure there's safety. We ensure that we have the peace of mind. We ensure that we educate the end user, and therefore we service the customer end-to-end cycle. I think what we've proven and shown that we are there to serve users in the long term. And I think working with the government right now, who's very, very progressive, to be honest. I think, Hassan, I echo what Hassan has mentioned about Philippines. And I think with that as a bedrock, we have the chance to leapfrog. And I think in the short term, we will be leading very, very soon. And I think some of the adoption numbers from entities like Chain Analysis have pointed out to the rosy picture that Philippines painted. I think what's interesting for me was in token, I realized that in Vietnam, they don't have such a structure. So if you talk about registered entities in the country, we are probably number one. There's a lot of activity that goes unregulated in the Vietnam, but that's driving a lot of activities. But if you talk about activities in the regulated world, I think Philippines is probably number one.
Got it, Alvin. So, regulation, clarity, and I guess ease of doing business as well. And Elijah?
Yeah, I think it's really very positive for the industry as a whole in terms of like what the regulators are dealing with it, right? Like like this whole thing. I guess like traditional regulators, they were not always that like well equipped with assessing and regulating something that new, right? Like obviously like before I really like dug my feet deep into crypto. Like back then, there wasn't like DeFi, there wasn't like Web3 concept, right? Like but like what excited me back then and what was really promising about like crypto back then was that it is a new asset class, right? And then like coming with like the excitement, regulators all around the world has taken a very different approach. Like what I was talking about earlier, that was I'm really happy with, is that like in the Philippines, the regulators kind of work with us, obviously, like Coins being like the first exchange here with like both a EMI license and also a virtual asset license, right? Was that like we have like a two-way conversation, right? It's not just about us reaching out to regulators, but we get like the other way around, right? Like we have very, very healthy conversations about, like what are the things that we can do, like what is it's always about like protecting the consumers, right? Like, so if like say coins were to offer like a service, and like how would it ensure that the customer interest is being protected, etc., right? So I think it is really, really positive for that, because like what I always tell people is that regulators, when it comes to like digital assets, when it comes to crypto and Web3, right? They should be the one taking the role to educate, right? And not being there to suffocate the world, right? Like we've seen like different sort of regulations around the world. Some of them like placing like a dollar limit in terms of like how much people can invest in like specific almost like sector of tokens and coins, and I do think like that sort of approach will not really work anymore, right? Like not within the crypto world that we work that we live in today, because like it's really important for us to keep the conversation with the regulators together, because like like when we have set like a hard limit in terms of like how much people can be involved, like sometimes you get like the exact opposite of what you're wanting to, right? Like even some of like the jurisdictions have started imposing a requirement whereby if like say you send funds out of like a local exchange, immediately you get taxed, right? And then like the question remains is that then what happens if I send it to a like a self-custody wallet? Is that you're gonna tax me on 1%, and then it creates like a whole different sort of dynamics around. So yeah, I think like the like the reform that would really be interesting is like for the whole regulatory agenda to shift more around like education, right? Like to educate for people to be well informed in terms of like what they can get up to. Yeah.
Everyone, this has been such a fruitful discussion. Love the incredible insights here. Let's go on and wrap up this session with your closing thoughts on what can Web3 founders expect in terms of help and support across Maya, Coins, and Coinbase, and even with BitPinas.
Sure. Let me start from BitPinas as an observer technically of this industry. So we wanted to make sure that we cover everything that is happening, like from the grassroots and also to our regulators. So the support that we can give is essentially coverage, especially if you are a crypto company, if you're a Web3 startup, and you wanted that particular coverage, you just need to talk to us, and then we are going to evaluate and of course make sure that what we are of course posting are legitimate companies and all that. So let's just say let's talk, and then we are at BitPinas, Michael at bitpinas.com. You can just talk to us, and then we can look into it. So yeah.
Yeah, I can go next. So at Coinbase, we love talking to founders. We love folks who are building things for the crypto economy. For Coinbase, one thing I'll say is just keep in mind that we are a multi-product company, and we have products and services that are specific for builders. So it's under our Coinbase Cloud umbrella, and we offer services like what we just spun up called Coinbase Node, where you can just for free like connect your app to the blockchain and to be able to read and write to it. We also have our Coinbase wallet. So as you're thinking about integrations and be able to tap into a user base that Coinbase wallet already has, that's something that you can just enjoy easily and for free as well. And even on the wallet side, we've opened up a specific kind of mobile SDK for developers, both on Android and iOS. So please hit us up. Would love to talk. Even personally, I'm on Twitter at Hassan_NY. So if you want to even discuss your idea or think about how this might apply to a global audience, available anytime for founders and builders. And then I'll turn to Justin to talk more about the ventures angle as well.
Yeah, thanks, Hassan. And I guess from the Coinbase Ventures side, as I mentioned before, we're still very active, as active as we've ever been globally, and are always looking to meet and back the best founders in the space. In fact, for the Philippines specifically, we're seeing a lot of exciting projects coming out of the market, and continue to look for great teams to back. So please reach out to me if you are looking for funding in the space.
And I also want to plug that Coinbase Ventures has a podcast called Around the Block. And our CEO, Brian Armstrong, just recently recorded a pod on the current state of crypto. So I think that's a good place to get started as well in the space.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I think for us, we recently introduced a free Bitcoin campaign. I'm not sure how many of you have seen it. I think it's resonated well in the community itself. So the idea and premise is basically you just make a payment with Maya, whether you're scanning a QR or pay with your Visa MasterCard link to your balance, and you'll be able to get free Bitcoin. Very simple premise. I think it's predicated upon the fact that, when we arrive, when I personally arrived in Philippines, I was asking what's the reason why you use PayMaya, and everybody said, "Oh yeah, PayMaya is very famous for giving free cash back." So we spun that concept around along the idea here is that, instead of receiving cash, which is our way of saying thank you very much and rewarding you for your loyalty, what if we now provide you the means to get free crypto? We decided on Bitcoin because actually everybody already knows what Bitcoin is. I don't need to educate the end users about what it is. But the interaction and what we're trying to go after is to solve the problem that there are many people who are not interested in crypto at all, who probably hasn't clicked on the crypto tile. And we want to give them skin in the game. Basically, have something for you to get started. So you can get up to like 500 pesos worth of free Bitcoin. It's sitting there. It's up to you decide, do you want to understand further about Bitcoin? Do you want to make more purchases? Or if you want to really sell it? But it gives a soft push for users who are typically not interested in crypto at all to get their first taste of what it means to be involved in crypto. And that involves buying and selling of crypto right now as a use case for us. I think we would like us to also work with enterprises. Obviously, we also have a lot of merchants together with us. But technically, you as a merchant could work with us to reward specific users for spend. How we connect the dots between the payment ecosystem is that, merchants who are on board with us as an acquirer are able to leverage those campaigns to be able to give free Bitcoin to reward certain activities. And I think that's how the strategy of combining the nuggets of us as a wallet, us as an acquirer, and then working with our merchant relationships to expand the business together and really engage the customers in a fun way. Crypto is not just about price going up and down and companies going bust and winter, but it's about engagement and being fun, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I think for coins, like what we're doing here, like first and foremost is definitely to enable access to end consumers, right? For people, be it they're crypto native or they, they're new to the whole world, right? Like we want to be there to do that. We have very exciting products up and coming that we're gonna deliver, and yeah, I guess just on top of that, like like we also work a lot in partnership with other projects, be it like be it Web3 projects or even just like traditional brands and companies locally, right? Because like for us, how we envision ourselves is that like we want to position ourselves to be like the go-to like the first person that you speak to, basically, right? Whenever you think about like wanting to do things in Web3 or even just like having like a very initial chat, right, about like how you can transform your brand and a company to be Web3. Because like on top of like the EMI license and virtual asset license, at the same time we can do remittance and we can do foreign exchange, right? So we see ourselves as being very unencumbered, to work with basically everyone, right? And yeah, when it comes to like business to businesses, we also see ourselves like going to enable the access to businesses as well, right? Like not just to the end users but also to the businesses. We believe like a lot of the solutions there should be plug and play, and we are always continuously like developing on that. And yeah, like feel free to reach out to us for like a face-to-face chat or even like a virtual meeting. We're always open and we spend a lot of time doing that.
Thanks so much, Elijah. Well, this has been an amazing time, folks. And just like a quick recap of everything that's been discussed here for everyone to remember, right? To summarize this conversation, is that one, crypto winter is builder summer. There's still lots of diverse use cases being built, from education to music to social networks and stable coins. But despite this, it's still super early, still less than 1% of global devs. So still lots of room to come in and join the space. Investors are still funding, especially for infrastructure and projects that hit big problems. And everyone here in this panel can help, right? From investing to developer products that you can easily use to partnerships and education, as well as helping tell your story at BitPinas. And then finally, it's not just about startups, right? Like Web 2 can be Web 3, right? We talked about the examples of like Reddit, as well as Maya, which is looking at Web3 as like an engagement driver for growth. Lots of opportunities for progressive policy improvements too. So we're super excited about seeing how the Philippines evolves in the next several months. Thank you for joining us. Michael, any last words for the BitPinas community?
Yeah, thank you, Oliver. And this has been a very interesting panel, no? And you're right, we are still very early. So Bitcoin has been around for almost a decade, but we're still super early. So what I was mentioning also in some of the events that I attended is that um, the moment that we reach mass adoption is the moment that we're not nerding about it anymore, like in this panel and all. So we're still super early, and I'm excited for the Philippines as well. And I'm excited at Bitpinas to tell the stories of everyone from companies like Maya, Coinbase Coins, and everyone else that are coming here and everyone else that are going to build here in our country.
Well, maybe I'll sound off by saying that I think you guys have seen a lot of the Philippines event in the month of November, and really November is Philippines month, because I know, because everybody in Singapore has been reaching out. Hey, should I go to Philippines? And a lot of them say it's my first time in Philippines. Say, don't worry, I'll host you. Come over, give me a call, and I'll take care of you. So I welcome everybody who's in the region to come and join us. Lots of activities, lots of speakers, and it'll be fun to get to know the local community and the spirit that we blend in together as well. So really exciting man ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.